everybody. We're recording. It's edition 166 of the Frank and Stan chat. And it's only the second time we've ventured out of the office and we've ventured to Fleetwood because we've come to see Dave McPartlin, who's the head teacher at Flakefleet.
Yeah, it's not the easiest to pronounce.
No, it's too many F's in that one.
Yeah, plenty of people got it wrong over the years.
But Dave and I have followed each other on Twitter for a while, and then I had the good fortune of meeting Dave at an event at the Blackpool Ballroom.
Yeah, it was Blackpool Pride of Place.
Yeah, it was a few months ago. And Dave mentioned about some amazing work he was doing. He didn't rave about it. I just thought it was amazing. And we thought it'd be great to come over and see it. And it is, well, we'll give you, Dave, a chance to tell us all about it. Yeah, here we are. Second time on the road. The first time was in York for Wakefield Head Teachers. Do you notice, Stan, we've not been invited back?
No. Now that you should be touting for a foreign trip.
Yeah.
There's somewhere exotic, like Singapore, Dubai.
Now you're talking.
Yeah.
But just to say, Stan wasn't available last week because of a wedding, a family wedding.
My daughter's wedding, which all went very well. I'm pleased to say. Now we've got a peaceful time, hopefully, for the next few weeks. Plus, I've not been well for a number of weeks, but I'm on recovery now, so I feel as though we're getting better.
Brilliant. Okay, well, Dave, who are you? For those who don't know you.
I'm Dave McPartlin, and I'm the head at Flakefleet Primary School up in the mighty Fleetwood, just down the road for our neighbours, Blackpool. You might have heard of Blackpool.
Yeah,
but it's all going on in Fleetwood, our little peninsula. We're 2-form entry, big school, got up to 2-year-old nursery, 3-year-old nursery, about 50% free school meals, so 500 kids, 100 staff. Never a dull day, but I've been here nearly 8 years, and I absolutely love it. I genuinely love it.
Now, you may have seen Dave on television a few times, but I mean, I've seen you more recently. A few years ago, I saw you, but more recently, you've been on BBC Breakfast talking about a number of issues. I don't know.
What could they possibly be? Yeah.
What were they?
I mean, we had the Britain's Got Talent adventure a couple of years back. But yeah, I did go on BBC Breakfast a couple of months ago just to talk about Ofsted. I'd put it off a few times. I've been lucky enough to be asked. I didn't really want to go on the record on national telly talking about Ofsted. It's not for the faint-hearted. And I think since Britain's Got Talent, we got this little bit of profiling. I'll be honest, it felt like the right thing to do. Just talk openly and honestly about the challenge I had with my own mental health and how it makes me feel and some of the things that I think we could change for the best of everybody, really. Yeah. So I remember I didn't really sleep much the night before, but I think I just about got the balance right. It felt like it was the right thing to do.
Well, I was struck by the authenticity of it all.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think colleagues I spoke to were pleased that somebody had stepped forward, in a head teacher role to sort of just make clear how Ofsted can make people feel. Obviously there's a need for it, but actually, whether or not in its current form it's fit for purpose.
Yeah. I mean, I've discovered Brené Brown fairly recently. I know there's people out there who've been into Brené for a long time. And it's just that idea of, vulnerability and embracing vulnerability. That's actually a strength. That takes courage. And I have been quite open about the fact that I do get very, very stressed. And I worry more than anything. I get really bad anxiety and it keeps me awake at night. But I'm really lucky. We've talked about Mike Rotherham and mutual contact that we know. I've read up on these things. And I'm a very, very confident, outgoing, lively person with a very, very big, strong, supportive network. And I'm struggling, and I just worry about some of the people out there that it's not the done thing. You don't talk about it. You just, stiff upper lip and things like that. And if you don't know who to reach out to, and I just kind of want to make it a bit more okay to talk about that kind of thing. And the job's more stressful than it's ever been. I think most people's jobs are more stressful than have ever been. So yeah, I really appreciate that. It means a lot.
I used to say to heads, the biggest secret of becoming a head is that nobody tells anybody else that they've been hurt.
Yeah.
Nobody, you don't get a colleague ringing up saying, I've been really hurt by something a parent said or by what Ofsted said. They just keep it to themselves and nobody shares it. And if we were a bit more honest and a bit more able to share, I'm sure people will appreciate that they're not the only one, because it feels like
Yeah,
you're the only one.
it does, and it's difficult sometimes. I've probably been to like head teacher clusters or other meetings where I've come away and was I whinging? And I wasn't doing that. I was just trying to normalise it. And I came across, I don't know if you crossed paths with Steph at Laughology, but there was a quote, and it's something along the lines of the wind blows the hardest at the top of the mountain. And it can feel like that sometimes, you know, you can feel quite vulnerable and quite fragile when you get to that point. But unless you've been in that position, everyone else feels like you're untouchable, and you know you do your own thing, and it can be such a lonely, vulnerable position to be in. But we sometimes need to remind ourselves that, you know, the view at the top of that mountain and the privilege, you know, that pressure. Can you remember the footballers, the women footballers talked about pressure as a privilege fairly recently. And in a way, it is. You know, I have this huge privilege of leading this amazing school with kids and staff I adore, but it does come at a cost at times, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think on the BBC thing, I think there were a lot of heads. Certainly, I got some feedback from heads saying how pleased they were that you'd done it, and what a brave thing to do, because everyone has that fear. If I say something wrong, it'll come back to bite me the next time we're inspected. Yeah,
absolutely. And the point that I made when I went on there was, I genuinely believe that 9 out of 10 inspectors, or so, you know, some very high figure, that they're great, you know, and there's absolutely a place for them. But my worry is that you just get the wrong team, who, you know, the person who comes in, who doesn't get, you know, me dancing around in sequined lycra on Britain's Got Talent. You know, that's not for everybody. But we talk about, you know, that shows up. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We're approached with kind of what you want for your kids. But there'll be equally people out there that goes, sequined lycra, that's not for head teacher.
We'll just pick up on that point, because we will put some little some pictures of what Dave has created. We're in a sort of little anteroom here. It's sort of like a comfortable room, sort of quiet room. But outside there's a community coffee shop which is going to open in 2 or 3 weeks' time. And just picking up on the point there that there may be 1 or 2 inspectors who come here and go, do you know what, Dave? You know, all of this work, you know, all this coffee shop, which is amazing, you know, it could make a big difference to the community. Actually, have you taken your eye off the ball in the school?
I totally agree. We don't do any teaching and learning. It's all about learning to make a perfect coffee. Do you know what I mean? As long as they've got brilliant pastries and coffees, life skills. We're going to have 500 baristas. Do you know what? We do the teaching and learning brilliantly. I genuinely think, you know, it's the staff who've done the hard work. You know, we've done all sorts of things. The lessons are brilliant. The setup, the rooms are fantastic. The experience that they have, the love, the care that those children, the families receive is first class. It's incredible. I'm so proud of it. But what I would argue is that, you know, some of our children, they're going home to a life that's not great. Some of our families, their life is very, very tough at the minute. And we can do everything that we can Monday to Friday, 9 till 3. But what about the issues with unemployment, with mental health, with loneliness, you know, on an evening or a weekend? I genuinely believe that some of the biggest gains to be had there. So let's try and address them. And the reality is, I wish I had time to come over here and make coffee all day. The reality is I don't. And it's been a labour of love. You know, every day of the holidays I was here pretty much, you know, on an evening, on a weekend. But is it going to make, you know, I'm really proud of what we have here. It makes me smile. There's a few children being over, it makes them smile. It's something really exciting. It's something that I think will make a massive difference. And it's absolutely, you know, I think it's going to be completely transformational.
No, the amazing thing, Stan, wasn't it, that Dave was saying that there's no school funds gone into this.
Now, for anybody out there that's thinking public money is going on that lovely coffee machine that looks like it could control a spaceship, the reality is, you know, we built relationships with a local GP, Mark Spencer, from 5 Course Medical Services, FCMS, and over the years, we always talked about the fact that you've got NHS over here, education, social services. We're all working in our little silos, but we're all trying to achieve the same thing. But we talked for years about, wouldn't it be brilliant to have somewhere where, you know, maybe that Regenda Housing based himself in here once a week, that the PCSOs come and have a breathe through there. And eventually we got to the point where we put a bid in for some funding and we found it. And it's been 6-7 years in the making. And it has been stressful. And there's been times where you think that's not going to happen. But some of the more exciting things, it takes a long time. You know, you've got to keep overcoming those obstacles. So yeah, no public money has been spent on this coffee shop, staffing on your coffee cups or anything like that. IKEA have done very well.
I think one of the things that struck me though about it was it's conveying a sort of different way of living as well. It's giving a more sort of settled, clear structure to how you have a coffee, how you have snacks, and all that sort of stuff. If you're a young person or a family, struggling with financial issues or whatever, sometimes these are the things that don't happen in the way that we're fortunate to have.
I just think the way you've embraced the community, this will act as a symbol of that, rather than what it achieves, whether people come in and have coffees or not. I'm sure they will, but actually this is the gateway to the community. And I mean, the quality of what you've got is probably, I'm guessing, better than in the surrounding areas. So you're actually starting serving coffee at a standard that's probably above most other places. So it's not that we're doing cheap coffee and we just want to get our parents in. I think it's setting a standard to say to the community, come on, we can do something.
I got goosebumps there. I'll be honest, I am quite an emotional person. It'll come as no surprise as one of the country's most famous ugly criers. But you know what? It's tough in Fleetwood, and I'm proud of my roots back in Hartlepool. But I think what we've struggled our way through COVID. We've got through that. Now you've got cost of living, and I actually in many ways think that's hit harder than anything else. And I think there's a little bit of shortage of hope in our country at the minute. I don't think I'm over-egging it. And hopefully this is a symbol of hope that, when we do something, we do it properly. And, everybody will be treated exactly the same. But if your life's in crisis, as it is for lots of our community at the minute, we're going to bring you in somewhere really lovely, not some, horrible public building with your magnolia and your purple, it's just with the rubbish coffee that's just a bit miserable. We want it to be a positive, uplifting place that you want to come and spend a bit of time. We'll help you get back. And, we've got agencies and groups galore wanting to be a part of it. That's their remit. But let's do it somewhere really nice. If you're going to do something, do it properly. We didn't want 8 out of 10, not 9 out. We wanted a 10. I said that to you
did.
In Blackpool. If you're going to do something, do it properly. And that's hopefully the message that we get with our parents.
It's certainly what I've picked up on a visit so far today.
I really appreciate that. It's really kind of you.
Okay, well, we've been chatting for about 20 minutes.
I think we could probably go on for a couple of hours, to be honest.
Well, let's quickly get on to what's caught our eye. Now, I drove Stan up to Fleetwood, and there was one issue that caught our eye. Do you want to do it then, Stan?
No, I mean, you can start. It's the COVID inquiry and the apparent chaos for me of leadership at a time of crisis. And everything I've read so far, it just reminds me of schools that I've seen in crisis where the leadership's weak and people who shouldn't really take over the leadership do, and people go their own way, and you create cliques, and the cliques are all fighting against each other instead of doing what they should do or looking after themselves rather than looking after the children. So for me, it was a complete and direct comparison with an organisation. I know more about schools than most organisations, but an organisation in chaos because the leadership isn't doing its job.
I was really shocked at the misogynistic language that was being used by advisors to members of staff who were actually just doing their job. I mean, I know there will be some that say, well, you've only heard one side of the story. But actually, I think it's difficult to row back from something that's been written down as evidence. But the thought I was saying to you, Stan, on the way that if ever there was a problem, I've never ever thought, oh well, the problem's because we've got a woman doing it, or we've got a man doing it. I mean, if we have a problem, we have a problem. It's around how we resolve that together. It's not a blaming. I think I've tried to avoid getting to a blaming culture. Maybe times when I've been lazily sort of thinking, oh, it's probably this member of staff, but the fact that it's male or female has had nothing to do with it at all. I was really shocked at the nature of that sort of language.
I think the other thing that shocked me was the fact that we've got paid advisors, specialist advisors, SPADs, who are making decisions, and as it turns out, according to the evidence, we're making policy decisions, and they're not elected. There's no public say of who gets picked to do that, how they get picked, what they do, and I know they have their own views of things, but they shouldn't be deciding policy. They should be advising the people who make the policies.
Yeah.
Do you know what it actually hurt when I was reading some of the things, and it hurt because I think it only confirmed what we thought at the time.
Yeah,
and that's what I heard, because we knew it, but I think we all gave them the benefit of the doubt. And I'll never forget, you know, we came in, there was can you remember when the unions were on about striking and saying that it wasn't safe to go in, and it was the Christmas period, and we took the decision on the weekend. We felt that certain that the schools were going to close, we weren't going to reopen, and we came in on the Sunday and we planned for full closure.
That Sunday was the day when the Prime Minister of the time said that they were confident that the schools were safe.
Yeah,
that was. It was exactly the same day.
Absolutely.
So that Prime Minister was on the Sunday morning program.
Yeah.
But you took a decision,
and we met. We got all of SLT in on a Sunday, and we came up with a plan B. And we said, we're not the children. The R rate. You know, we were on top of our stats and things like that. We were that confident that we were going to close. We didn't open, and we went on Facebook Live. We communicated with our parents, and we didn't open, because we knew that that was the best thing to do. And yet, like you said, we went on television that Sunday morning to say it was open, and then by the following night, the schools were closed. And that was tough for us. You know, we knew that there would be some people that gave us a bit of grief, that you know, that wasn't the right thing to do. The rest of the schools are open. And sure enough, 24 hours later, and I think what our guiding principle was, what's the right thing to do? What do we genuinely think is the right thing to do? And it just, for me, it's the absence of that in government. It was about what looks best, what are the best optics, what's going to get us through this, and that should never. Ironically, what would have kept them in a stronger position is if they were genuinely done throughout what was best for the country and the people, they would have come through it so much stronger than trying to play it politically at the time. And it just hurt, but you know, it felt incredibly stressful, and it was such a massive weight to carry around leading the school during that time. And for the powers that be to be kind of the messaging, like, I would never send some of those messages.
No,
I can't imagine ever wording anything even similar to that. And it just hurt a little bit, knowing what it felt like on the ground, as it were, to know that that's what was going on at the highest levels of government.
I think the other thing that irked me was now masks, whether you agree with them or not, that at the time they were saying, should we have masks in school? And the education secretary resisted it, not because of any science, not because he didn't know whether it was better for children or not, but because the unions wanted it, and he wasn't prepared to give anything to the union. So we've got a decision made not about the children, made about how it looks for me if I give way to the unions on something.
I mean, I think we all tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. This was completely new. But some of the things that have come out, you know, you can imagine I'd be out of a job if I did some of the things that
we've said this many times.
I would literally be out of a job, and I would expect to be out of a job.
We've used the word humility, haven't we? And also, I think the fact that there was a sense of wanting to show, I think the government wanted to show that they were leading, or they were doing the right thing, you know. But actually, I think that got to a point of it being slightly arrogant. And actually, when things then didn't quite work out the way they wanted them to be, there was no real humility in it. It was around, oh, we've now decided. Whereas I think if it was set up as, you know, this is really difficult, you know, I think
we might get things wrong.
If on those three podiums, you know, the Prime Minister or the Health Secretary said, this is really hard. You know, we've never faced anything like this before. You know, it's a journey together, but actually, and along the way, we may get some things wrong, but we can generally say, have we always used the evidence? Well, you know, I mean, but that's what they would say, isn't it?
Yeah. But I can remember as a head getting, so I can't even remember what it was I got wrong, but I stood in front of the whole staff and said, look, I've got this wrong. This is, you know, I'm new to this job. I'm not going to get everything right, and I've got this one wrong. And I walked back to my office and I thought, it's resign time. But actually, the staff appreciated that more than anything, just to say, you know, sorry, I did think this would work. It's not worked, and we're going to change. Was far better than ploughing on with it to show it would work eventually.
So, Dave, what's caught your eye this week?
Oh man, I think Gaza. You know, Israel, Palestine, and I don't really know how to articulate it all, because I'm ever, probably like lots of people, I don't feel like I know enough about it.
No.
And I've read up, I've watched videos, I've watched, like versions for children. It's nothing as it sounds. I've been talking, I've watched news round, children's entertainment, because it's so complicated and complex and nuanced. And it's just hard. There are lots, thousands of innocent civilians being killed, but then it's very, very politically, and it's loaded, and I don't really know, how to talk about it, what's okay, what's not, and what I should be thinking, because I'm conscious I don't know enough about it. And I would imagine there's lots of other teachers and people working in schools who don't know how to talk about it. All I do know that there are lots and lots of people dying, and that is really difficult to watch on the television. I've got 3 kids myself. I don't know how to explain that to them.
It's interesting, the narrative around Ukraine, Russia, that became very polarized, didn't it? Very quickly. There was this sort of, the invader was viewed negatively. Ukraine's territory had been invaded.
Yeah.
This is a much more complex, nuanced sort of situation, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think the problem is the culture of probably many countries now, because of what's gone on in the last 5-10 years, is that you pick a side and you stick to it, and you can't do the look. There are innocent people on both sides dying. Why can't we just stop? That bit doesn't. You're either on one side or the other. And for me, I never like that, being pushed into supporting one team against the other. I'd rather be able to.
But then you worry about, at the moment, I do worry about speaking up. Trying to articulate it. For fear of causing offence, or sounding uninformed, misinformed, and we do need to talk about it, but it's just it's tragic.
It's interesting. Before we got onto this, we were talking about behaviour policies, weren't we, and attitudes to behaviour, and you mentioned the point that really, in a way, the polarisation, which is where we were in our discussions, because there are some advocates of a particular type of approach. Against somebody perhaps with a more liberal approach, I
don't know who you could be referring to.
No, but actually, you talked about a common ground.
Well, I just think it's what works.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
Yeah.
It's schools find what works best for them, and if they are interested in a different regime and want to try that, and then it makes things better and it works, great. But there'll be schools that it doesn't work in, and there are other approaches, and instead of advocating there is, again, one fix, and if you do it this way it'll fix everything. Education's been going too long to have missed the one fix. So I just think what works in your school, in the context of your school, is what you should be looking for, not a theoretical model that you can apply.
How has your attitude to behaviour changed then? Because you were saying before, you're in sort of quite a leafy school.
Yeah, I was in a more affluent.
Just take us through that journey. So how many headships have you had?
So I'm at 5 schools in.
5?
Yeah. I was
Blimey.
two form entry schools in the northeast. I was deputy head when I left the northeast. Came over to Holtner Sands, another Lancashire school. There, deputy head for a couple of years, acting head for 2 terms. And then I was at another school in a much more affluent area for 5 years, and then nearly 8 years here. And I think,
how's your attitude to behaviour?
I vividly remember thinking zero tolerance is the way to go. Zero tolerance. I did. That was me. And very quickly in a tougher area, it was like that's not going to work.
Did you think that being a parent influenced your thinking on that, or do you think it was just your professional life?
I think I just I was a good lad at school. I stuck in. I was a bit of a swat, and I think I follow the rules. So everybody else should follow the rules. And I think over the years, trauma informed practice seems to divide people online, but we've done a lot of work on that. We've very much gone down the Paul Dix relational approach, and it works like a treat for us.
Yeah,
it really does, and it challenged some staff. But we still have consequences. We still have lots of things, and the names that you smiled about, you seem to have. I'm going to go there. Hi, Paul and Tom. But you've got Tom Bennett on one side, and you've got Paul Dix on the other. And I'm with you. Actually, there is somewhere in between, and we're very much more down towards the Paul Dix side. But actually, I did say I was honest in that, maybe at high school there is more of a place for that because they're older, they're more mature, they can cope and they can deal with that. I would always argue that there is a bit of a place for both. And you magpie the best bits, and you will meet where works for your catchment, for your staff, for your children. But we have gone down the relational approach. We don't shout at the children, but when I take you back over to, you'll see that the children are polite, they're friendly, that they will listen to the adults. There's a really lovely culture going on over there. But other schools might need something different.
Yeah.
Horses for courses.
I think when I was teaching in inner city Salford, that it was like a hybrid. That you formed a relationship with the children that was that strong that they would do as you asked them to do, as long as you weren't making fun of them. And I can remember an advisor coming in and saying, "Well, I bet you have real problems with these children." And there were 2 Year 6 lads out of my class walking down the corridor, and I said, "Lads, will you just sit down and put your hands on your head?" And they did it, and he went, "Wow." But afterwards, I had to go to those 2 lads and say, "Sorry about that. I wasn't trying to humiliate you. I was just making a point, and you just happened to turn up. Because if I damage that relationship, they won't do it the next time."
Yeah, and that's the thing, that relationship is so important, and it has taken quite a long time to get to this point where they will push those boundaries. They will challenge it, because some of those children, their life is very stressful. That there's a lot of shouting going on. It can be quite it can be quite tough for lots of different reasons. Stressful households, and us shouting at them, they're used to that. We know, like, I often think of if as an adult, if I ever shouted at you, which would be really weird, but our relationship would never be the same again. Even if I was really stressed, you'd always be a little bit wary. And I say that to staff when we shout at, if we ever shout at that child, they're always going to be a bit wary. For us, it's about trying to understand it and fixing it, and there'll still be a consequence. But that relationship, it does. I mean, the Pordex stuff, we're big fans of Pordex. So they've all got the book and everything. But it works for us. And I'm not sure it would work everywhere. And I'm not sure that we would have done this 7-8 years ago when I first started here, where we were. But we were ready for it because of I think the journey leading up to the last couple of years.
I can remember members of staff joining us from various schools when we were a really tough inner city school, and me having to say as deputy, "You need to bend with the wind in this school. Yes, there'll be things that are not acceptable and we'll deal with those, but don't overreact the first time. You need to bend. If you don't bend, you'll snap."
And I think your thresholds can be different in different schools, and people might disagree with that.
No, I absolutely agree.
It is different for different children. There's something that happened today that it came to light, some of the things that had gone on at home yesterday, and you can kind of understand why the child's not in a great place. We know as adults, when you've got things going on, you can deal with things inappropriate, not as well as you would have done.
Well, you can imagine, say, I moved from inner city Salford to Ramsbottom as head in leafy suburbs, and the first complaint was a child pulling faces at somebody on the way home. And you think, wow. But afterwards you think, no, actually, if that's the level, I need to deal with it.
Exactly.
And it's a different level altogether, but I'd still need to deal with it.
Exactly. Totally agree.
Yeah. Well, our chat has gone on for 30 minutes or so. I just want to thank you, Dave, for the invitation.
I really enjoyed it.
And we're going to have a little look around the school now. And anybody interested in seeing what Dave McPartlin's done at his school, he's very open to accepting visitors.
Yeah, feeling more than welcome.
And I'd really welcome you to come and have a look at the community space that he's developed here. It's absolutely amazing.
And have some superb coffee.
Yeah.
But if you've got big pockets, pay the right price.
Yeah.
It's $2.50.
No, I think people should pay more if
they've got the money.
No, we're not all about making profits. It's about the experience.
Okay, well, until next week, thank you all for watching or listening, and Frankenstein Chat will be back next Friday. Thank you. Bye-bye.